Thank you for being with us tonight. This meeting has been brought to you in part by
Let Grand Forks International Airport help you start your next vacation off on the right foot. Grand Forks International Airport offers flights to the sunny destinations of Orlando, Las Vegas, and Phoenix on Allegiant, and connections anywhere in the world through Minneapolis-St. Paul on Delta. Forget the hassle of long drives, parking nightmares, and stressful check-ins. The convenience of flying locally means less headaches and more time for you. Grand Forks International Airport. Your airport. Simply grand.
How many things in your house connect to the internet? Let's see. Computers, smartphones, gaming console, maybe your appliances and lights. They say that by the year 2020, the average home will have 5 devices for every one person. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be average. We're going to need much better internet.
Midco Extreme Gig is here. Life-changing.
Know what's in this box? Well, in case your crystal ball is broken, here's a hint. Safe, reliable energy, for starters, but there's also a commitment to this community. See, at Xcel Energy, this is our hometown. So we're not just about making a living here, we're about living here. Oh, I wish I had wings.
In our community, we're always delivering. Xcel Energy, responsible by nature.
As a farm kid from North Dakota, I was raised to face challenges head-on. But that was put to the test when I was diagnosed with cancer as a teenager. Now, I'm determined to help kids overcome illnesses like I did. So I started my journey at the University of North Dakota. With hard work and determination, I'll help others like my doctors helped me. I'm making my impact. How will you make yours?
Well, I can offer that up as an option.
Thank you. And the regular mics work. The City of Grand Forks City Board of Equalization, May 6, 2019, is hereby called to order. Welcome and
Weigel. Here. Doppler. Doppler, are you on the phone? Yeah. Okay. Weber. Mock. Marshall. Here. Sandy. Here. Dean. Here. All present. We have 4.
Okay, 1.2.
Consider protest recommendations from the city assessor. Howard, should we do all these read out separately? A is Christopher T. and my 687 Vineyard Drive. I'm going to read them all off, and then if you can address them separately. B is Sterling Properties, doing business as Oakview Townhomes. C, Sterling Properties, Amberwood Court. D, Sterling Properties, Cherry Creek. E, Sterling Properties, Chandler 1866 Apartment. F, Sterling Properties, Mayfair Apartment. G, Sterling Properties, Southview Apartments. H, Sterling Properties, Stanford Court. I, Sunview Apartments. J, Valley Homes Duplex. K, Cole, KO Grand Forks, doing business as Cole's. L and M are both withdrawn, but L is Furniture USA, Ashley Furniture, and M is 818 Cedar Bills Drive, Stephen Argo.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of council. I am Tammy Lazar, Deputy City Assessor. Our first on the agenda is for Christopher and Mia Brown at 687 Vineyard Drive. Mr. Bowe is here, and I believe he does have some comments for you.
Dr. Bowe, would you like to address the City Board of Equalization? Welcome.
I would, you bet. I probably don't need a microphone, but I'll come up anyway if you don't mind. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. My protest is over the notice of increase in real estate assessment, which I received in the mail, increasing my property tax, true and fair value by 24% in 1 year. No new additions, no changes to the property. It's built less than 10 years ago, I would remind everyone here. My property's at 687 Vineyard Drive, and I'm certainly here to talk about this increase. In the past, my home has gone up every year by the city average, for which I lodged no protest. And this year I am scheduled to increase by almost 25% with no changes to my property. I've looked at my neighbors' values and some comparable properties around this area, and I don't feel prior to this assessment that my house was undervalued. I feel that my house had been fairly valued, and you could even look to the recent sale of my neighbor's house this past year for about $800,000, which is my next door neighbor, which was what my property was listed at prior to this $202,000 increase. One of my neighbor's houses also sold for about $850,000 in 2018, and the value assessed by the city was $846,000. So very much in line with what the city had assessed. Other neighbors have tried unsuccessfully to sell their homes at increased values, such as those assessed to my house, and one tried at $995,000, and its value was assessed at $893,000. It was reduced, unable to sell, and was taken off the market. Another was valued at $607,800 and was unsuccessfully marketed at $559,000. I've looked at some other market comps with similar square footage, numbers of beds and baths, and I would say that, again, if you look at the city, you would find that what the prices of homes that are being sold for, that by raising my house price, the level that it's been raised is a little bit beyond what the values of the homes are sold for. And my understanding is that the city values their homes on what you can get for your home. What are the sales? So to raise my house to $1,050,000, I don't know that there's been a house in Grand Forks that sold for $1 million on the market. I don't know. I would like to hear it. I would actually point out the house that's for sale at 3665 Linwood Circle over by Century School. I just looked at that house. It's actually 6,800 square feet larger than my home. It was built in 1998. It's a beautiful home. It's got a beautiful yard. That house is for sale for about $650,000. They just reduced it by 5% because they can't sell it. So I think I would suggest that the matrix for the homes in my value range are a bit too high. It doesn't seem to have any indication to support these high values with either market sales or new construction. And I would request that my values be brought back to the levels of 2018 with the normal increase that you assess every other home in Grand Forks, not with a 24.24% increase. It feels unfair, and I'd like you to address this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bowe. Any requests or thoughts from the Board of Equalization? Okay. Would you please come forward and make your remarks?
My comments regarding this particular property is, this is a property that is a two-story property, 6,185 square feet, main floor and up. That does not include basement square footage. It's set on a very nice, large, irregular lot. It was also part of a reappraisal area that we completed this past summer. So Mr. Bowe's property plus His immediate area was an area that we knew that we had some issues with, and so we dedicated time to go out and do a reappraisal. When that was completed, we reviewed values by property and the neighborhood. We again, with Mr. Bo's property, we reevaluated, or excuse me, analyzed, reviewed the values for Mr. Bo's property and all of those properties. We feel that ever since Mr. Bo's property has been completed in 2011, it has been undervalued. If you look at page 1 of the staff report that provides our summary, you can see that we have it valued at $168.15 per square foot on this property. The sales, the comparable sales that we have found of properties large in size, because Mr. Bo's is larger than most that you will find out in the market. We've those sales show a range of $171 to $258 per square foot based on those sale prices. If I look at these properties again in a different light, at the time of sale, we use their sale price and remove the land value. So I'm looking only at the improvement value only to determine if our improvement value may be out of line. So I looked at it a second way. And that is shown in the green highlighted areas on that page that I've given you. That green will show you that we have a range of $142 to $219 per square foot, where this property is valued at $144.70. Again, I'm right in range of those square footage dollars per square foot on Mr. Bo's property. It would be page 1, it would be page 3 after the staff report. Yes. Reviewing the neighborhood, we find that we are equitable and fair. Mr. Bo did provide us with properties to consider for the valuation of his. What we found, though, is they're much smaller in square footage and much less in quality. And those are two very significant factors in valuation of his home and others. I do recommend that you uphold our 2019 valuation of $1,040,000, excuse me. Do you have any questions for me?
Cool. Questions from the Board of Equalization? Thank you. Yes, Ms. Mock.
You mentioned the reappraisal process. Can you explain how you go about doing those reappraisals in different neighborhoods?
Sure. We try to do those every number of years, and this particular reappraisal process or area was an area that we picked because we knew we had other indicators that we were not equitable, that we had some valuation issues. And with a reappraisal, we send out letters, we do physical inspections, we ask for interior access to the home so that we are not making assumptions. If we're not allowed access into the home, we do have to make assumptions and estimate what may be there. And that is how we've come to handle those reappraisals.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy.
What were the indicators that suggested that we had issues with the assessments in that neighborhood?
We had a couple of property owners in that area state that they felt that we were out of balance, out of equity. We also had some land.
Sorry to interrupt you. Some of the neighbors were telling you that they thought their values were undervalued?
Not undervalued, overvalued.
Were overvalued. Okay, thank you. Go on.
And when we looked at those properties at that time, it came to light that we may have some issues. These are higher end properties as well. And there's not a whole lot of data available, but what we do have supports our values, and we are using the market evidence to support our valuations.
One last question. How many comparable home sales were you able to find, comparable in size, that you were able to use for your evaluation?
Our staff report shows...
I'm sorry, I can't get the staff report to show up on my iPad. Apparently this is Gen 1. Here.
I have 7 comparable sales on my staff report. And I would truly say that the two at the very bottom that are 38, that are under 4,000 square feet are probably less comparable and usable compared to Mr. Bose simply because of square footage. But I did include them in my information because they are 17 and 18 sales. They are recent sales.
But most of your comparables are older.
They are. But if we don't have data, it's...
No, I understand. I mean, in my opinion, if you're finding values from 4 years ago, that's even more evidence to me that if they were to sell today, they would sell for more than what they did back then, right?
Well, we have had, as you can see in here, we have had a sale of over $1 million.
Thank you.
Further comments from the Board of Equalization? Ms. Marshall.
In the assessment process in that particular area of town, were there other homes that were adjusted upward in value in a percentage that was above the typical, as Mr. Bose referred to?
Mr. Bose did receive the highest percentage increase in a reappraisal. It is, we do reappraisals to find errors that have happened in the past, and that is what happened with Mr. Bose. The reason that he has a larger increase than the rest.
Mr. Mayor. So the city erred on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think if it's a city error, then the city should work with Dr. Bo to come to some type of compromise. I mean, this was no fault of his own. It's the fault of the city of Grand Forks, and I believe we got to do what we can to make it right. So I would ask that the city and Dr. Bo get together and come up with some type of fair deal where both are getting what they need out of this deal.
I would make a statement that we would have a fair and equitable issue.
Mr. Swanson.
Mayor Brown, members of the Board of Equalization. Although that's a laudable and equitable approach, by law you cannot do that. You cannot negotiate a value of the property for setting taxes. The role of your board tonight is to determine whether or not the proposed valuation by the city is a fair and equitable valuation based upon the classification of the property in comparison of values to other properties in the neighborhood and in comparison to either the cost approach appraisal or the market value appraisal. So at this stage, the property owner has the ability to provide you whatever information that they have or would like you to consider. The assessor's office similarly can provide you with what information they believe is appropriate, and it's up to this board to make a determination as to what the value should be set at. Unfortunately, we cannot negotiate values for tax purposes.
Mr. Weber.
Consistent with that, because of the limited number of couples, you've been, by necessity, based comparables on square footage. Is that different than what would normally be done if there were more comparables, or am I not understanding that?
Square footage is a driving factor in valuation. And when you have a large home, your comparables get fewer. Mr. Bo's property is about the fourth largest property within the city, and therefore we do have fewer comparables that are similar to his size. And so with that, we do have to probably go out further in valuation or in time frame from comparables.
But I mean, this is part of state code. This is one of the ways that we value properties.
Yes.
And because of the limited number of comparables, you have few other tools to use here. This is one
Correct.
of the dominant tools. Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Villa.
Yeah. Does your cost per square foot usually go down as the building gets bigger?
Yes. And that's what happened with Mr. Bose. When we look in the neighborhood, excuse me, when I say our neighborhood range,
Because as I looked at it here, you have some at 219 a square foot, But that's a smaller.
Correct.
Smaller square footage, and almost all of these are smaller square footage and a higher cost per square foot. Is that
Correct. As the property gets, the square footage gets bigger, your dollars per square foot will get smaller.
And then other things such as quality, and there's other pieces that will impact that cost per square foot besides
Yes.
the area.
Yes. Yes. You have amenities, you have quality, you have age, you have bathrooms, you have some that have pools, basement finish. There's a laundry list of things that would go into evaluation.
So you have comparable, in this chart, you have Mr. Bo's property at the top, then you have sales comparables, and then you have equity comparisons from the neighborhood.
Yep.
What's the difference between, and then you have the current listing provided by the owner.
Correct.
Can you explain what the difference is between each one of those categories?
Sure. The sales comparables are the comparables that have sold within the last, well, since 2013 till current. The equity comparisons are the properties that were included in our reappraisal area from this summer. And they would be properties within Mr. Bo's immediate neighborhood.
From this summer, you said?
From this summer. This summer is when we completed the reappraisal. And then the current listings at the bottom, he provided us with those three current listings. Linwood, Pinehurst, and Pinehurst were the three properties included in his information. And you can see how they are. The Linwood property that he referenced is 2,000 square feet smaller than his. And even at the listing price that they're asking, it would be $151. But there's no, Mr. Bo's property is still superior to that property in quality and land. The property that I have crossed out at 5802 Pinehurst Court, that would not be a good comparable to Mr. Bo's because it's a one-story on slab. Much different valuation in a one-story versus a two-story. And then the third one on Pinehurst is half the size of Mr. Bo's. You can see even with those properties, we range in per square foot valuation of $151 to $250. Our valuations are fair and equitable.
Mr. Mayor, in light of the evidence provided by the assessing department, I'll move we deny the appeal and we
Accept the assessor's recommendation.
the assessor's recommendation.
Okay, we have a second. Mr. Weber, discussion?
One of the things that I understand is that you have not yet inspected the interior of the home, although that's often a part of the process.
We did inspect Mr. Bo's property this summer, yes, and he was present. Our senior appraiser and myself completed that inspection.
Very good. I'm just trying to understand every step of the process.
Sure, yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second before us. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Mr. Weigel dissents. We go on next to B through J as a unit. Tammy?
It is me again. B through J are all for, as Maureen stated, they're all for Sterling properties. They have appealed 9 complexes, which involves many parcels. I have general comments for all of them because my comments will not change, so doesn't make sense to restate everything 9 times. So let me just give you my general comments overall. And they pertain to B through J on your agenda. So we have approximately 500 apartment parcels with the one owner protesting values this year. Over the last 2 years, I have reviewed and reappraised all the apartments. We have been consistent in our valuation, and our values are market-based. We consider the cost approach, the sales of comparison approach, and the income approach to all of these properties. Many of these properties were recently purchased by Sterling Properties within the last 5 years. The owners did provide us with income and expenses for 2018. They also gave us a summary of their income and expenses for the last 4 years, and we reviewed that information, but it did not provide any evidence in our model to change values, being consistent with our 3 approaches to value. Our market shows our gross income multipliers is what we use for the sales comparison approach on these properties. A gross income multiplier is a rough estimate of value based on gross income and the sale price. Consistently, what we saw with these properties and review of these properties is that the owner's requested valuation supports our model. It also, their request is not market-based. It is based on their arbitrary valuation request. I would recommend that you uphold the staff reports that we have, the valuations that we have provided for you in our staff reports. In the first property of B, Oakview Townhomes, we did lower that property because we did find that we had an extra garage on one of those properties, and so we did recommend to lower that property. Additionally, any questions?
Board of
for me?
Equalization, any questions? If not, we need a motion. Ms. Marshall? And then second by Mr. Vian. Discussion from council. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries, thank you. Item K.
And that was for Coles.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Brown and members of the council. I would ask that you uphold the city assessor's 2019 value for the Coles property of $6,210,800. They're asking for a reduction to $4,100,000. Our value is supported by the cost approach and the income approach. I've used the same income data, rents, vacancy rates, cap rates for this building and others just like it, of the same size, age, and utility, location, those types of things. So this is a fair and equitable value. The staff report shows that. Couple of issues I had with their request is in the income or in the cost approach, they use 32.5% physical depreciation for a building that's 13 years old. That's way too much. They've added 20% functional depreciation for reduced footprint. That's a new one to me. I'm not even sure what that means. They added $10,500 for paving. There's 188,000 square feet of paving, curb, gutter, sewer, and everything in that parking lot. And the value that they added for that is $10,500. I would estimate conservatively that it would cost about $750,000 to replace what's there. So they're not taking the cost seriously. The income approach, they used $6 rent versus my $8. They did submit some comparables for their $6 rent, but largely what I found is that $6 rent is either coming from smaller jurisdictions in population or larger jurisdictions on much older buildings. And both of those things are going to reflect on the rent that a building will bring. So again, I would ask you to uphold the assessor's true and full value for the 2019 year of $6,210,800.
Comments on Board of Equalization? Mr. Weber motion, second. Mr. Vian. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you. And with that, we go to 1.3, correct?
Yes, Furniture USA.
That was withdrawn.
Yeah, the other two were withdrawn. So now we go to 1.3.
Okay, sorry. Certify the 2018 annual assessments to the county auditor. Certify the 2019 true and full value of $4,852,945,800 to the county auditor.
Need a motion and a second. Mr. Weber motions. Mr. Sandy seconds. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Item 1.4
You each have a copy of the annual staff report on your desk in front of you. This will also be on the city website for anyone who wants to look at it. If you have any questions, let me know. I will also email you a digital copy.
Thank you.
Thank
Next
you
is
all.
item 1.4. Mr. Sandy, motion is to adjourn. Second, Ms. Marshall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned as the Board of Equalization, May 6th, 2019. The City of Grand Forks City Council meeting, Monday, May 6th, 2019, is hereby called to order. Welcome and roll call.
Okay, Weigel. Dockler.
Here.
Weber. Mock. Marshall. Sandy. Veen. We have quorum.
1.2,
That's a pledge of
Pledge of
allegiance.
Allegiance. Please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next, item 1.3 under Mayor's announcements. I would like to congratulate President Kennedy on his selection in Colorado. And with that, we'll move on to item 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations. 2.1.
Proclamation for Children's Mental Health Awareness Week, May 5th through 11th.
Okay, let me find that. That would be Children's Mental Health and Awareness Week. So I have a proclamation, Children's Mental Health and Awareness Week, May 5th through the 11th, 2019. Whereas addressing the complex mental health needs of children, youth, and families today is fundamental to the future of Grand Forks. The need for comprehensive, coordinated mental health services for children, youth, and families places upon our community a critical responsibility. It is appropriate that a week should be set apart each year for the direction of our thoughts towards our children's mental health and well-being. The North Dakota Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health, through its unique approach to serving children and adolescents, is effectively caring for the mental needs of children, youth, and families in our community. Now, therefore, Michael Brown, Mayor of Grand Forks, does hereby proclaim May 5th through 11th, 2018, to be Children's Mental Health Awareness Week in Grand Forks, and urge all citizens and agencies to meet the children's health needs in our community. And then next one,
National Music Week, May 5th through 12th.
National Music Week. Proclamation, National Music Week, May 5th through 12th, 2018, Music and Adventure for Life. Whereas music plays an increasingly important role in our world today, and music is one of the most sublime of human pursuits and is subscribed by all races and creeds. Music is the language of all people and one of the greatest forces in creating peace and harmony. The National Federation of Music Clubs is dedicated to encouraging young musicians, to increasing musical knowledge, and to advancing American music, and its cooperating organizations join forces to direct the attention to the dynamic influence of music in everyday living. Now, therefore, Michael Brown, Mayor of Grand Forks, does hereby proclaim the week of May 5th through 12th as National Music Week in our community. And then,
And C is Oncology Nursing Month for May of 2019.
so proclamation, Oncology Nursing Month, May 2019, whereas oncology nurses are committed to providing quality oncology care. Oncology nurses have demonstrated excellence in patient care teaching, research, administration, and education in the field of oncology nursing. Oncology nursing endeavors to educate the public in prevention and treatment of cancer. So now Grand Forks is recognizing, proclaiming May 2019 as Oncology Nursing Month. And the next one is D, is the library. So let us, Grand Forks Public Library Day proclamation, whereas the City of Grand Forks Public has been the cornerstone of our community since May 2nd, 2019. The Grand Forks Public Library works to meet the changing needs of our community, including providing resources and services for everyone and bringing services outside of library walls. The Grand Forks Public Librarians work to connect the community, inspire creativity, and encourage curiosity. The Grand Forks Public Librarians are trained, tech-savvy professionals providing technology, training, and accessing to download content like ebooks and e-magazines. The Grand Forks Public Library offers programs to meet community needs, provides early literacy programs, homework help, special needs programs, and research assistance. The Grand Forks Public Library is continuously growing and evolving in how they provide for the needs of every member of our community. The Grand Forks Public Library has been in service to the community of Grand Forks for 119 years. Now be it resolved that Grand Forks Public Library Day, May 18th, 2019 is hereby recognized in our community. I encourage all residents to visit the library and take advantage of the wonderful library resources and events available in our community. Thank you. And with that, we go to 2.2.
Welcoming community roadmap update.
Mr. Phelan.
Mayor Brown, members of City Council, Robin Davids here to provide you an update on what she's been doing the last 75 days. And as we provided before, she started in February. She's done a lot of outreach, a lot of reconnaissance with our stakeholders and groups, and it's going to be back with you today for 75 to 80 day review. Importantly, we're working on the mayor's budget currently, and we're continuing to examine how the welcoming roadmap and the associated work that goes along with it will fit within that budget. We are targeting more the economic development type funds, workforce development, those sorts of things if we do move forward in the mayor's budget. So we'll be having that conversation with Mayor Brown. We still haven't moved forward with anything in that budget, but more to come when we deliver the mayor's budget in July. So with that, I'd step aside and let Robin give you an update.
Thank you, Ms. David. Welcome.
All right, thank you very much for your time, council members and Mayor Brown, to hear some updates on the work that's been happening over the last couple of months. The last presentation was a while back. We've since had our big launch event in January, which I know was attended by a number of you, and a number of things have been happening in the community since then, so we'll offer a few updates. There we are. Just a reminder, of course, that the welcoming work that we're doing in the community could only be possible because we have this very strong foundation of welcoming work that is already being done here. And the fact that we have 30 agencies who are working together on this effort is really a testament to that welcoming effort in Grand Forks, and really does set Grand Forks apart from many other communities that are tackling this kind of work. That really is commendable, and we've heard that from numerous people. With the new stage of it, we've done multiple updates during the development stage, and then the approval through council, the endorsement of the project. Now as we move into the implementation stage, some of the things are similar structurally from the previous stage, some are new. So we will still be utilizing a steering committee to help look at the information that's coming in and guide the work from there. The one addition, though, is that we now have ultra representation as well on the steering committee, which will be very helpful both as a major service provider and as a major employer within Grand Forks. A new addition structurally is a welcoming leaders group that is going to be launched probably next month, early next month, with the city administrator, Todd Phelan, and I. And we have on this group really wonderful representation, executive level representation from some of the key partners within Grand Forks. And so we have both city and county who are represented on that, as well as Altru and UND, public schools, Grand Forks Region Economic Development, and that's a group that's going to be meeting a couple of times a year to make sure that welcoming is well integrated with major initiatives going on throughout the community. So that new executive level leaders group is something that I think is very positive going forward. A few updates. You'll be getting updates through a variety of means, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but some of the things that are already happening or accomplished as a result of the roadmap. One, the Grand Forks Region Economic Development entrepreneurship ecosystem mapping is something that's going to be able to be utilized by a number of people doing that sort of work in the community. Grand Forks Public has acquired new materials that better represent the populations within Grand Forks, and have also made their meeting rooms more available to groups who are wanting to have gathering space. So there's good progress on a number of those. Also, in a couple of weeks, the first Cooking Up Cultures event is going to be happening it'll be over the course of a month, which is a partnership with Blue Weber from Downtown Development, as well as the Nonprofit Leadership Capstone class. We're partnering to highlight different specials from different countries that are developed by local people in our community, for people to get a chance to see what communities we do have represented in Grand Forks. We're also almost ready to launch a new barrier scan process that's really going to be innovative and something that anybody organizing any kind of event will be able to utilize through the Public Information Center when they apply for an event permit. They'll get a chance to have some assistance with making sure that their event can reach out to the populations that they're hoping to. We have a number of other initiatives that are currently defined as in progress, and actually most of the initiatives right now are defined as in progress. Meetings have begun. Things are almost ready to implement, including some Parks District representation to make sure that everybody is able to participate in different activities, workforce assessment, things of that nature. And then a few more initiatives that are on the way shortly after that. Really good progress. Many of the items were front loaded in that first year, so there's really going to be a lot to document after the first year. Communication updates. A big piece of the work that I've been doing is making sure that this project is visible and that making sure that all of the pieces are connected with this. One of those is through a social media campaign. GF Welcomes was launched about a month ago, and is going to be a part of a certain percentage of social media posts that are shared by the city every week. So it's going to be part of that regular, consistent messaging through the city, as well as being utilized by partners and individuals throughout Grand Forks. Another piece is a web page that we hope will be able to be launched later this month, and that web page is going to be a really helpful tool because it will allow for tracking of progress on any of the initiatives. So if you want to see how this one is coming, if you want to see the end product of this particular initiative, you'll be able to track that. That's a way that we're going to be able to open source the information and the progress that we're making so that one agency can utilize the results that were from a different agency. One city department can utilize findings from a different city department, and actually other communities will be able to utilize the work that we're doing here in Grand Forks, because we're really setting some new new progress and new initiatives that we're launching right here in the community. An Action Updates newsletter, you'll likely be getting that next week. We're hoping to be able to launch that then, and also sharing through presentations, both locally, regionally, nationally. A few of us are going out to Pittsburgh next week to the Welcoming America Interactive to share the project that we've completed here so that other communities across the United States can learn from what we're doing here. So visibility and communication has been a really key piece of the work. As the city administrator mentioned, my position started February 19th, part-time temporary position through the end of the year. And as of 8 o'clock this morning, we also have a new wonderful intern, Mara Ferguson, who's going to be working on the project this summer and working with Council Member Brett Weber on that process too, which with those kinds of connections will really help to kind of provide some jet fuel to the project. Some updates on the position itself. The first year is a little bit different from the potential later years of the project. Year one, my responsibilities have been to support both within the city and outside agencies who are working on welcoming, making sure that we have accountability and that we have an ability to communicate those findings. In the first year, there are no direct implementation of initiatives. So my responsibility is not to carry out any of those, but to support the work that's being done on all of those separate initiatives. Year two, that switches a little bit, and there are 8 city-led initiatives in year two, as well as 8 to-be-determined initiatives in year two that would likely fall, in part at least, under the responsibility of a welcoming community coordinator. In addition, year two would likely involve pursuit of some funding. There are, with the innovative project that we're doing, it does open up the city for some really great funding opportunities, and a couple have already been funded, some of these specific projects. And so likely a welcoming community coordinator would be working on pursuing additional funding and grant writing in the next year for some of those initiatives. So the outcomes of the position itself, again, are accountability and visibility. The handout that you all have in front of you goes through the specific detailed outcomes for both the project and the position itself. And as Todd Phelan had mentioned, the feedback within the first days of the position has been greatly meetings with key stakeholders. And that has been a really fascinating project. And thank you, most of you I was able to meet with individually for that that piece too, just to get a sense from these agencies what their biggest priorities are in terms of welcoming, and to pose that very broad question of, if we're successful in 5 years, what does welcoming look like from your point of view, from whatever industry you're representing or from whatever stakeholder position you're representing. And I heard many of the similar issues, but many different angles of them repeated throughout that. Issues of wanting to make sure we have a trusting, welcoming atmosphere, both with stakeholders and with people that we're serving, making sure that we have a diverse representation and engagement of populations in decision-making processes in part, and making sure that there's economic inclusion too, and that employers have access to the kinds of workforce that they need to be able to use. With these meetings I was able to carry out, it also allowed me to be in the position of being a connector, and that really is what the position is shaping up to be in that first year, so that one agency can learn about the results from another agency, and I can follow back with if one is facing some particular concerns, that I can connect them with the agency who's also working on similar issues. So that's been a key part of my involvement in the first year. So the project outcomes, again, are detailed on the sheet that you have in front of you, along with metrics. A huge portion of this project is assessing to make sure that with all of these 78 initiatives, we know what kind of progress we're making, and that we're able to shift within those 5 years. If we have, for instance, demographic changes in Grand Forks or economic changes, we want to make sure that we're doing the best kind of work that we can be doing. So we have the four project outcomes that really were echoed in the work that we were doing in the development of the project, and then what I was hearing from key stakeholders, making sure populations are engaged, making sure communities are connected, and that we can recruit and engage workforce talent too. In addition, the final piece there is to achieve welcoming certification. This is something new that we've added to it. Welcoming America has a new standard. There are only 5 communities across the United States right now that have achieved welcoming certification. There are a number of additional communities who are in process, have applications that are being reviewed right now. If we are able to accomplish what we set out to in the next couple of years, we are on track to achieve that recognition as well, and that's something that we'll be able to share and will be really distinctive and an asset for the community. So finally, the tracking that we're doing over these years as we're assessing the work, we'll be looking at census data, we'll be looking at Labor Department data, we'll be redoing the surveys and focus groups that we did to develop the project originally to see the kind of progress that we're making, looking at retention of families who have left the Air Force Base, as well as graduates of UND, and also utilizing a lot of social media analytics to be able to assess how welcoming is playing out in that realm too. In addition, we're also partnering with a number of agencies on the assessment that they're already doing. So I've had conversations, for instance, with the police department so that we can look at some of the things that they might be tracking. How can we utilize that same kind of data without having them collect additional information? The Grand Forks Public Schools has agreed to, in the survey, for instance, that they administer to all faculty and staff, parents and students, to include some welcoming questions that we would develop. And so we're partnering on these kind of efforts because they want to know that sort of information. We can utilize that information too. So there's a lot of partnering on the assessment piece. And the next steps will be to carry out these next stages through the summer, having the leaders group convene, and we'll be preparing reports twice per year. And so I would be back again at the end of the year too with an assessment of the kind of work that's been accomplished, the metrics that we have met over that first year, and any kind of redirection that we might be doing for year 2.
Thank you, Ms. David. Any comments or questions from the council? Councilman Vian?
Yeah, just very quickly, I know just a couple slides earlier, you get 4 project outcomes. Are all those outcomes also tracked and measured?
Yes, yes. So the handout that you have includes those 4 outcomes, and it has the methods that we'll be utilizing, whether it's a multi-organizational audit for communications or whether it's repetition of survey data so we can see follow-up information about how we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any further comments or questions? I enjoyed the pictures on your slides.
Some look familiar.
Ms. Marshall.
I just wanted to thank you for this exciting and very important work within our community. I think this will go a long ways, and appreciate your energy and your efforts, and also that of Ms. Ferguson, who will be with us this summer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weber.
I know that's
on again? Okay, good.
In the past, one of the challenges was law enforcement data, because we don't track by how long you've lived here, for instance. What kinds of things is the police department, what will they be tracking?
Some of the conversations that I had with the police department centered around school resource officer activity, and particularly within certain, they have a couple of initiatives within the first year to be accomplishing, and school resource officers, particularly in certain schools, end up working with a number of newcomer populations, and so we talked about tracking some of their activity that they're doing.
Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you very much. And now 2.3.
Water treatment plant update.
Mr. Phelan.
Mayor Brown, Sherry Edeblut from our construction management company is going to give you an update. It's an exciting time right now because the water treatment plant's becoming real, and you're going to see that on some of the pictures. So I just want to give you an update, and importantly, on some of the work that's gone on over the last 3 to 4 months at the legislature and what our plan forward is financially on the particular project. Regarding substantial completion, we're going to start this plan up in different phases starting this fall. We have I also provided you an update at your place. So we see substantial completion happening on February 28th, 2020 and April 30th, 2020, with a final completion of June 30th, 2020. So that's the same final completion date. We have moved the substantial completion dates just for ease of trying to start up this facility. It's important with a water treatment plant, probably different than any other. I think the water treatment plant is in our top tier, if not the top thing that we do here for the city of Grand Forks, is that it's not only planning and it's designed and it's constructed. We have to do startup, and then we have to deliver services, and humans consume this stuff. So it's a pretty important thing that we do. And to get all those things right. So there'll be a lot of work that'll be going on from fall to June so that we can start up and nobody will really know the difference other than the water maybe tastes a little bit better. I wanted to talk to you about the budget also. As we move forward in this particular legislative session, we had submitted prior to the session to the State Water Commission that we sought $9.9 million plus to complete the water treatment plant. As with our current estimate as part of a 50-50 cost share. I will say right now we're tracking $149,700,000 is our current estimate with all the change order and all the things that we have currently moving in. We are going to plan the next State Water Commission meeting is in June, I think June 13th. So our plan is to go to the State Water Commission. And Mr. Vian has been attending a lot of those with us too, and ask for our current request. Right now, if we were tracking at 149.7, our request would be 9.875 million instead of the 9.9. So we'll verify that. We'll have to submit a final application this week on that cost and move forward with that. So things are going well. Our current grant, we think we'll have expended by September. We're spending about $3 to $4 million a month, of which is matched 50-50 with the state of North Dakota. So currently we have about $14 million left on our current grant. And if you recall this, we received $5 million in 2013 for final design. And then in 15, we received 30, and then in 17, we received $30 million. So of that final $30 million, we have about $14 million left to expend, and we anticipate that being expended in September. So in advance of that, we go in June to ask for the remaining balance so that we can continue the project moving forward, which is good. I've gotten some questions about, are we sure we're going to get our money? And there's no certainty in life other than uncertainty, as they always say. But currently, as we went into the session, we're better off now with what has happened with the state legislature, much thanks to Senator Holmberg, Representative Sanford, and Mock with all their great work on appropriations. So we have close to $1 billion in the State Water Commission budget, or Senate Bill 2020. 300 million of that is from carryover from previous. So they have a significant amount of money that's being placed in there. Importantly, there's several vessels where they put the money from flood protection to water supply, et cetera. So when we started out with the governor's budget, there was about, I'm going to say $25 million that was set aside in municipal water supply. And of that $25 million, our 9.9 million was set aside in that particular area. Our category of municipal water supply, we, as the Grand Forks Water Treatment, we were considered a moderately important project, okay? And so that was the highest you could get in the municipal water supply. You'd have to be like a flood protection project to get a high value. So we felt pretty confident that we were within that category. The state legislature's even done better. They've increased it by another $20 to $25 million. So we feel pretty secure that we're going to get our additional $9 million if we request it because we're within that category. So I think that's good news, but nothing's done till it's done as we move forward. When Ken and I have been to the State Water Commission, they care about a few things, making sure the cost of the project is going well and it's going to deliver and all those things for the citizens of Grand Forks. But we're really pressed that we're going to be even more of a regional provider. Certainly we're a regional provider to the airport, we're a regional provider to the Grand Forks Air Force Base, but what are we doing with our regional rural water suppliers? So we are studying how we can be a better interconnector with those regional water suppliers in our region. So we are doing that. So when we go, we'll be reporting on that, of whether it's for supplying them water today or whether supplying them for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project, that we are doing all those things. So we will be updating them on that. So things have gone well. I think we are on time. I think we are on budget. I think we should be able to receive our remaining 50-50 cost share from the State Water Commission. I think we should be able to see that in June, and we should be good for the following year when we can have hopefully a celebration of having a final completion in June of next year. So with that, any questions for me? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Sherry, and she can show you some of the updates of what's going on with water treatment.
Any questions for Mr. Phelan? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Phelan, Mayor Brown, Council. This week is National Drinking Water Week. And so AWWA denotes and devotes this week to recognizing the vital role drinking water impacts our daily lives. And so it's only fitting that you've invited me here today to give a quick update on the water treatment construction site. Here's where we were a year ago, and here's where we are today. And so that black membrane signifies that the shell, the structure, substantially complete is substantially complete beneath it. When we look at and drive past it, the site, this is kind of the side that would face the road. You can see it a year ago, it wasn't much to look at. Here we are today, you can see the precast face is up. You can see some of the architectural features and the lime silo structure. If we jump inside the structure, we can start to see all of these pumps. We have over 50 process pumps, over 20 chemical pumps, and all that means we have all of these pipe systems then are pressurized. And so we have an extensive pipe testing procedure to ensure before we even get to the point of making clean water that our systems are tested out and ready. Here's what appears to be a congested corridor, which actually signifies how we've maximized the layout inside the facility. We've stacked trades to reduce our footprint so that we can be more efficient and effective for the city. We have an extensive HVAC temperature and humidity control system throughout the facility. So here's just kind of redundant pumps and piping. Again, all that piping that has to be tested before we start up. To clean the drinking water, we need energy, and so we have these massive electrical rooms, and there are several of them, and so it controls the incoming power and then sends it out to all those pumps and equipment that clean our water. So just think of this as, that small little breaker box maybe in your home, only much magnitude. There's multiple rooms that look just like this. This is the complex filter gallery. This is one of the most complex valving and piping sequences in the entire facility. We've had numerous water industry, educational and professional tours come throughout construction, and this is always one of the spaces that they always look at how complex it is, but how good of a use of space that that we've created through the design. This is where our operators will sit up in this control room. So if you can imagine, like, you all sit on an elevated platform so that you can look out better. And on this curved space, there would be glass. And so here's the engineer's rendering of that same space. So if you can follow the curve, and then there's the glass panels again, allowing them to look out, but they've got screens up that they can also look at and monitor. You can see from the road this lime structure, and soon it'll have some panels around it, but this is a look under the hood, if you will, since you can see it from the road. And these just giant bins will store lime, so it gets trucked in. We store it up here, and then we consume it through the process. But once it gets covered up, it'll be something different in the horizon. So I wanted to give you this obscure view of it, because you won't see it. We won't know. So these are a portion of our significant subcontractors and vendors that we have participating right now on site. We've logged over 305,000 man hours on a day-to-day basis. We have over 100 men and women in the field. And so we did a quick survey, and we found out that about 56% of them identified with living in East Grand or Grand Forks. And when we expanded that to about an 80-mile radius of Grand Forks, we found out that over 80% of them live and reside here. With that, I'll ask if you have any questions.
Any questions or comments from council? Mr. Weber.
I'm guessing that the taste of water is a combination of the source and then the treatment process.
That is correct.
We're shifting to a new treatment process. Can we anticipate any change in the water? Because any change will result in some people saying, ooh, this doesn't taste right.
Change is different, correct.
Yes, yeah.
So through the treatment process, our objective really is to have a consistent product in our drinking water, right? Regardless of what the impacts are coming in. And so we really want to, and we will be a more effective and efficient plant. We will have a better product, right? And consistent color, taste, odor. So that there will be that it's different. And different sometimes is panicked, right? But it will be a better, consistent, more economical, more consistent product. Does that make sense?
And throughout the year?
Yes,
Right now,
year-round.
we have some seasonal changes.
Exactly.
We'll expect fewer
Remember,
seasonal
we're a
changes.
dual train, so there's two ways the plant can operate. And so one way, depending on the intake of what's going on biologically, that will determine how the operators choose to treat the water. Right now, they're very limited, right? There's a couple chemical changes they can make, but here, because we've got the membranes, we've got reverse osmosis, or we've got the traditional, we've got softening, we've got ozone out that we've never had before. So again, all of those factors will let us have a more consistent product. And so in the end, I think that's what your consumers will find, that it's consistent.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, Mr. Vian?
Yeah, just a quick question. I mean, the startup process, and this is going to take quite a few months, is that true? And timeline for doing it? And it's really complex when you start at a new plant site with the old plant and the raw water having to come through and getting here and all of that. Can you, at maybe a future meeting, kind of show us what that startup process might look like?
Absolutely.
And when do you think you'll start that? Be ready to do some of the startup?
To be honest, some of our equipment has already been checked out. So as equipment is becoming ready, we'll have the manufacturers come out and they look it over and make sure everything's installed good and give us the thumbs up that goes ahead and lets us energize things and start that testing process. So like I said, we've started leak testing the piping because I don't want to turn on a pump without knowing that the pipe is good, right? So there's an order to it. So it's very much an intricate, phased, conservative approach, and I'd love to share that with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And then next we go to 2.4.
Team Grand Forks legislative update.
Mr. Wilford, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, members of the council. I gotta apologize for my voice. That might be to your benefit. It might speed the agenda up a little bit. I'm here to give a little bit of an update on the Team Grand Forks process. About 10 years ago, the chamber, the city, the county, the EDC, and UND came together to identify various projects that we felt were important to take to the legislature as a group and work to educate our legislators and our state leaders to convince them that those are the types of things that they would want to fund for our community. This past session has again been an extremely successful year for Team Grand Forks. When you take a look at the total dollars we're bringing back over the last decade, it's approaching $500 million that the Team Grand Forks list has brought back to our community. We, as a group, we have stuck pretty much to infrastructure priorities. And I'm going to kind of lead you through, I believe the council members have the list of the 7 priorities that we had this year. The first was Operation Prairie Dog Bill. And you saw that obviously passed early in the session. It's already been signed by the governor. It equals $250 million in total funding, and that will become available at the end of this biennium as the various buckets fill. And that will distribute $115 million to cities, $115 million to counties, and $20 million to airports. The airport piece was kind of in play at the end. I'm very glad to see that's in there, particularly when you look at what's on the horizon. I think later this year you'll hear from our airport authority about a major project that will be coming up at our airport. In addition to that $20 million, the Aeronautics Commission has historically received $5 million, and they've actually received $20 million this year, so that'll be another $15 million into that airport pot. So what does this bill mean for Grand Forks? What it means that going forward, the city of Grand Forks will receive $12 million per biennium for infrastructure funding, and the county will receive $5.2 million. That's extremely significant and will definitely help the city council and the leaders in our community keep our property taxes reasonable. Priority number 2 was beyond visual line of sight. The lieutenant governor was in town this morning to present the bill. He obviously didn't sign it. The governor needs to do that. And we had most of our legislators were out this morning to see that presentation. Beyond visual line of sight, why is that important for Grand Forks? I think everybody knows that Grand Forks County is the home of the first UAS airport at Grand Sky, and it is likely that most of the operations for that statewide beyond visual line of sight will be operated out of Grand Forks once it's up and running. So that's great news for our community. The other piece, there was $3 million allocated to Grand Sky itself, our UAS airport, and that will again be for infrastructure as it has been in the past. Most people know, I think, that the land that Grand Sky sits on is federal land, so they're unable to do special assessments on the sewer and water, which is why we need to go to the state to get this funding, because there's no way for them to pay it back in a normal special assessment process. And then number 4 priority was to have the UAS test site funded again for another biennium, and they received $2.25 million, and that of course was approved and part of the commerce bill that was signed today. We also asked for $600,000 in funding for base retention. However, all 3 of the cities that would split that money have almost a biennium's worth of money in the bank from the previous biennium, so the legislature didn't view that as high a priority as they have the 3 previous bienniums. So that was one of our priorities, the only one of our priorities, by the way, that was not funded. And then that military spouse license reciprocity. Senator Scott Meyer, excuse me, my throat here. Senator Scott Meyer carried that bill, and that bill passed. It took a lot of negotiating with a number of the state boards in order to get it through, but that bill passed. That bill was a very high priority on the radar of the Secretary of the Air Force. In the future, how friendly a state and how friendly a community is to the military is going to become part of the base location process. Not just base closure process, but as we look to recruit future missions to our community, they are going to have a metric, and this is going to be one of the pieces of that metric. Finally, of course, we're the home of the University of North Dakota, and we had 3 priority items on there. One was research funding. UND's ERC received $5 million. There was also a $15 million innovation technology loan program with 2% interest that was approved. And then a $1.5 million Northern Tier Network was approved, which will help support big data. So we didn't get, I don't think, what we initially set out to get, the 100 million, which I think was a pretty aggressive goal and a real grand goal. But we did get some substantial funding for research, and I think it's a very good first step as we go for the next biennium. And I think in the really good news category, the state approved 2%, 2.5% pay increases for university employees and state employees system-wide. And I think that's obviously another real positive for our community. And then the legislature also authorized a number of capital projects from the Memorial Union, the Quad, and there's a list of them that the university will now be able to bond and finance for. So overall, an extremely successful session again. And just to give people an idea, next week, Wednesday, we'll have the 3 members of the appropriations committees from Grand Forks will actually be presenting to the Chamber's BGA committee, the Business Government Education Alliance Committee, and that will actually start the process for the 2021 legislative session. That coalition of 5 groups, Mr. Weber and Mr. Vian are on that committee, as Mr. Phelan and Mr. Haga. Those are the 4 city representatives on that group, and all 5 of those entities, we meet on a monthly basis the year before and a quarterly basis this upcoming year. So there's a lot of work that gets put into putting this priority list together, and I think you can see when these groups work together, we can really accomplish a lot at the state. Final comment is, this is very unique. We're the only city in the state that does that, and I think the proof is in this 10 years of success. So thank you all very much.
Well, thank you. It's a very positive report. Any comments, Mr. Vian?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I think you're absolutely right on with the work of everybody working together, and it's been very successful. I'll just add a couple of additional comments based on some of the things that are maybe more local to the city. Thank you. Everybody can hear. The city tracked 140 of the bills, and we took positions on 42. Of those 19 we opposed, and 15 did fail, 4 passed. And of the 23 that we supported, 15 passed. 8 failed, but note that 6 of the 8 were merged into the 2012 DHS budget bill, which passed with several related provisions. And I think as Mr. Haga said, if we were a UND hockey player, our plus minus would be a plus 18 with what we were able to do with the session. So I would like to say thanks to it was on. That, you know, we got together weekly to talk about these issues. A lot of staff members went to Bismarck to comment and present on the various bills. And I think it was just exceptionally successful with all the work that was done. I don't think I want to add a whole lot of additional. I do want to thank on the appropriation side, Senator Holberg and Representative Sanford and Maka. We worked with a lot on various funding bills. And they did really make a difference as you look at some of the fundings that we did receive for the project. One of those that went through approps, which wasn't funding, but I thought was very helpful, was an assurance in Senate Bill 2020 that any impacts from the Fargo diversion would not have downstream impacts on the city of Grand Forks. And with the flood that happened this year, I thought it was important that that get put in. Representative Sanford worked hard to try to make that through, because I think we went through about 5 different versions to get that as a part of that bill. So I guess all in all, I thought the city had a good effort, and a lot of people contributed. Mr. Weber was, and I, of course, represented the council. It was fun to be able to do that. And I guess that's just what I wanted to add with what Barry talked about.
Well, thank you for your actions. Mr. Weber?
Very quickly, some final comments then. As has been noted, Grand Forks was very successful, especially in relation to infrastructure. There was also some good news in terms of social services and some support for programs there. Just some very positive policy news for the city in many ways. I would have a little different interpretation than Mr. Wolford in regard to home rule. There were a lot of efforts to limit home rule authority. Most of those were fended off, which was good. I was still concerned about the number of them, but we don't need to go there right now. Mr. Vian, you were above and beyond through the entire session. The amount of time that you spent down in Bismarck on our behalf, we're very fortunate. I mentioned this, I think, a few times during the session, but thanks for all of your work. And it is called Team Grand Forks. It is a team effort, but teams look to their leaders. Barry, thanks for your leadership role in all of this. Congratulations. I tried to take things off in crazy directions once in a while, and you reined me in, and it was very successful for your cautious approach to it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you. Any further comments from council? Hearing none, good job. Next, we go to item 3, public hearings and second reads of ordinances, 3.1.
Public hearing on petition to vacate Cornell Street between blocks 1 and 2, University Place Edition.
Open the public hearing on 3.1. Close the public hearing on 3.1. Council comments, Mr. Sandy motions. Second, Ms. Marshall. All in favor say aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you. Item 3.2.
Public hearing on petition to vacate Oxford Street line between blocks 12 and 13, University Place Edition.
Open the public hearing on 3.2. Close the public hearing on 3.2. Council comments or action on 3.2. Mr. Weigel motions. Second, Ms. Mock. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Item 3.3.
Public hearing and second reading of an ordinance relating to quorum of events in our commission.
I'll open the public hearing on 3.3. I'll close the public hearing on 3.3. Council action on 3.2, 3.3, I mean, Mr. Vian, motions. Second, Mr. Sandy. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, carries. Thank you. Item 4, action items. Who would like action items pulled for discussion? I will pull 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6. Who would like other action items pulled for discussion? Mr. Vian. Mr. Vian needs to be recused from 411. Mr. Sandy motions. Ms. Mock seconds. And Ms. Mock also wants to be recused. So now I need another second. Mr. Weigel seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Mr. Vian and Ms. Mock are recused from 411. Any other action items pulled for discussion? Mr. Sandy? No, you want to pull 412, Mr. Sandy? Okay. So that would leave 4.1, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, 4.11, 4.12, 4.13, 4.14, 4.15, 4.16, and 4.17 for a motion and a second. Mr. Vian motions. Can he motion with being recused? Mr. Sandy motions. Ms. Marshall seconds. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, carries. Thank you. Item 4.2.
Application for property tax incentives for new or expanding business from Production Specialties Corporation doing business as PS Stores.
Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, I thank you for allowing this to go on the agenda. It was not a last week, but 2 weeks ago, but it was a time-sensitive request. So with that, I'll quickly go through it. It's application from PS Industries. They manufacture industrial doors, safety products, and flood barriers. The owners plan to expand the facility at 1150 South 48th Street by adding up to 80,000 square feet. And with that, it's an estimated value of $6.4 million. The request will add 20 full-time jobs and 10 part-time jobs. So with that, we do recommend approval.
So need any questions? So motion, Mr. Sandy, second. Ms. Marshall, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
carries. Thank you. Item 4.3.
Accept the annual actuarial valuation report for the defined benefit pension plan and authorize payment of the employer contribution.
Ms. Dorstead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I asked the mayor to pull this as this went to our pension committee for discussion week before last, and the email that I sent last week is also attached to the staff report. What we're asking for tonight is for you to approve, receive, and file the report and authorize the payment as outlined in the staff report, but just a little bit, if I could just go through some of the review of the items with this plan. This is the city's defined benefit pension plan, which is closed to employees after 1996. We did have negative return of 3.2% due to some negative performance in the fourth quarter of the year. But on an actuarial basis, the assets have increased from 68.8 million to 69.8 million as we smooth those gains and losses over a 5-year period. The recommended contribution was $3,336,703. We are recommending to pay the full amount as is budgeted, plus the remainder budgeted amount from 2018 carryover to this plan. I also wanted to highlight, Mr. Sandy, you had brought up at the strategic planning session last Monday, possibly about interest that would have earned that money if we had put in the full allocation for 18. So that would be for consideration. If you would like to do that, we can also add an allocation there. Otherwise, what had been recommended in the staff report was to make the full amount as budgeted in 2019 plus the 2018 remainder budget of $254,197 and approve the actuarial report.
Council comments? So Ms. Marshall, motions approval. Second, Mr. Weber. Any further discussion? That includes your changes?
Yes, that should include everything.
So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, thank you. Item 4.4.
Award bid for 2019-13 Police Interceptor Utility Package Vehicles.
Welcome, Chief Nelson.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, normally we would be doing this earlier in the year. We were not able to get Ford squad cars earlier in the year. We were unsure if we'd even be able to get any for our fleet this year. However, we did get information back that Ford would be able to tool the process to run an additional run of squad cars. So we opened it up for bids. Bids were opened last week. The reason you're seeing this for the first time now is there's a 22 to 24 wait week to get our vehicles, and we opened the bids after the COW. That's why this is the first time you've seen this bid. We're recommending that you approve the bid as submitted, and it would be for 6 smart squad units with the bid awarded to Nelson Motors out of Fergus Falls.
Thank you. Questions or comments from council?
I'll move.
Mr. Weigel motions, that's appropriate, thank you. Mr. Weber seconds, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, carries, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
4.5.
Amended cost participation and maintenance agreement with the NDDOT for Project 7750, reconstruct of Demers Avenue and Sorley Bridge to 6th Street.
Mr. Walker.
Good afternoon, Mayor Brown, members of City Council. So last time I was before the committee, it was to get your concurrence in the award of the bid that was received by the DOT. This project is a regional funded project, so the actual contract, if the project is to be awarded, is not between the city and the contractor, but rather is between the DOT and the contractor. So as of last week, the DOT had not yet awarded this project, and they did contact us regarding some concerns about awarding it. Mr. Phelan, Mr. Grasser, Meredith Richards, and I talked with the DOT last week about how do we move forward with the project. There was some concern on their part just because the project came in so much above the engineer's estimate, and that there was only one bidder bidding on the project. So we wrote this staff report after having that discussion with the DOT, and at the time we wrote the staff report, we didn't know for sure if the DOT would proceed with awarding the bid. We also didn't know what our share of the project expenses were going to be at that time. Since that time, we have found out that the DOT does intend to award the project, and they have identified our share at about 1.64 million, which is just a little bit less than what I had reported in my the staff report. We've also, as of late today, received a draft copy of the amendment to the cost participation and maintenance agreement, and I had the finance department upload that draft agreement to the staff report, so it should be attached to your staff report online. So back in March, we approved the cost participation and maintenance agreement, and at that time, the city's share was just a little bit over $800,000 for this project. In April, the DOT received a single bid for the project, and it was about 32% above the engineer's estimate, or about $2 million higher than what they had anticipated. On the basis of the bids received and the identified cost-sharing percentages, the city's share would have been a little over $1 million on that basis. Because the project exceeded the engineer's estimate by such a large amount, and because only one bid was received, the DOT was considering not awarding the project, and they were considering rebidding the project for construction next year. And they contemplated whether to do that or not. And in doing so, they did contact the city and asked for our input and asked us to identify negative impacts that delaying the construction project would include. We identified a number of them. Just to name a few, is just the public perception of the project proceeding, all the effort that a lot of people have put forth in developing this project up to this point. The detour route would have impacts with projects that are planned for next year, as well as developments that are being proposed now, the Hugo's development, the potential Lions development. Anyway, the staff recommended that the DOT proceed with the construction of the project this year. One of the things that the DOT did identify as a concern on their part is where would they come up with the additional funding. They program all of their projects such that they would utilize all of the different funding available through them, through the federal government, and a number of projects had come in over budget. So the city staff suggested that the city might be able to participate to a higher level if that's what was necessary to fund the project for construction this year. The DOT considered that, and they indicated that they normally award projects that are 10% above the engineer's estimate or lower, assuming that there are no irregularities with the bid or anything like that. So what was suggested is that the amount that exceeds 10% over the engineer's estimate might be an amount that the city and the state could share in. So this amended cost participation and maintenance agreement suggests that about 1.3 million be split between the city and the state. So on that basis, the amendment that the DOT is proposing to the cost participation and maintenance agreement would increase the city share by about $628,000 over what was expected based on the bid. Our new total would be 1.642 million. So it's our recommendation that we approve this amendment to the cost participation and maintenance agreement and keep the project proceeding this year.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Mr. Walker? Mr. Weber.
The 1.62, that includes some expenses that we are electing to incur on our own. There was a plan for the reconstruction. We wanted some additional work done while we were tearing everything up, so part of that expense is something that we've added on our own. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if you're referring to, we had about $88,000 in engineering fees that we had done privately for someone to design the streetscape portion, if that's what you're referring to. So that figure does not include that amount, but all of the streetscape features that have been considered are still in the project and would be included for construction.
Very good. And the reality is that we're still getting, I believe, about a 5-to-1 match. Each dollar that we're putting up, we're getting state or federal. About 5-to-1 is still the match.
So based upon the bid price that the DOT received, the price of the project, including everything, is around $10 million.
It's around $10 million.
$10 million, our share is 1.6.
So we're well in excess of 5 to 1. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I'll move approval.
Have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Ms. Marshall, further discussion? Mr. Sandy?
Mr. Walker, thank you for the detailed report, and appreciate the city staff working very hard trying to figure out a solution to this issue. I do have a few questions in general about the process. How is the timing on these bids? How does it compare to, say, most of the other projects that major construction projects we have going on this summer? Was this one of the last things that we bid out regionally?
It was one of the last things. If you recall, there was about 3 or 4 projects that the DOT bid late I guess it was in early April, excuse me, and brought forward. This was a project that would normally be bid earlier in the year. If you recall, the DOT had originally intended to construct this project in 2020, but we asked them to advance the schedule and construct it in 2019. They did their best to get it done as quick as possible, but it took this much time just to put it all together.
So is timing possibility, is the timing of this correlated to the fact that they only got one bid, probably?
Yeah, I would say so. Typically on a project like this that involves working in a downtown area or a developed area, that it's usually someone who is local, and it's not usually someone from out of state or out of town that comes in and does a paving project like this. And if you remember, not that long ago, we bid University Avenue, which was another big project, and that particular contractor did not bid on the Demers Avenue project because he had his hands full with University Avenue.
Right. So some of our necessity of moving this forward combined with bidding it late probably led to the fact that there wasn't a whole lot of competition on it and the higher bids. I'm concerned that we're going to see a pattern. City of Grand Forks, now that we're collecting additional sales tax revenue, we're doing considerably more projects. And if we're not bidding our projects, even if we are bidding them early, there are a lack of qualified companies to do all of the work that we're trying to get. And so if we're going to be seeing 20% increases in the cost of our construction, it's a lot of diminishing returns on the fact that we're bringing in more revenue but spending it on the same number of projects. So I don't know if there's any way around that. I just think we should be aware in general that because we're doing so much construction, so many road projects, if we continue to see creep, or if maybe this is an anomaly, if it becomes a pattern, I think we need to be very careful about maybe we should hold on to money and extend longer into the future our construction projects, because spending the same amount of money to get the same amount, or more money to get the same amount of work done doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Thank you, Mr. Walker, I appreciate it.
Mr. Weber.
Part of the good news here is that the money's staying local. We're not sending this out to a contractor from out of state, for instance. The number I asked you about earlier, by my calculations, we're getting about a 6.25 to 1. For every dollar we're putting up, we're getting $6.25 in state and federal. The additional cost is in part due to a lack of local tradespeople, but slowing down development is not going to encourage more tradespeople to come to town. The capitalist market says the more activity that we have bids like this, other contractors will see this as an opportunity, and so hopefully we'll see more tradespeople. The additional cost, unfortunate, we would prefer to not pay it, but I believe it is dwarfed by the economic impact if we were to delay this project. It would cost our community more than what we're coming up with here. So We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion, Mr. Vian?
Yeah, and just very quickly, I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit, Sandy, in that the timing of this one is late. And I think if we learn something, and I don't think we learned something, we knew that. We should be bidding these projects earlier in the year. And we typically do bid them earlier in the year because as people's slates get full, they don't bid on projects. And the earlier we bid them, the better off we're going to be. So I would say in the future, I think we can still get really good bids. I think we just need to be bidding them earlier. And we were thankful that we got this even bid this year at all. So I think there are some unnecessary, unfortunate consequences. But again, it's still in our best interest to proceed as we had originally intended. And I guess I'm very much in support of the motion. So.
We have a motion, a second before us. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 4.6.
Plans and specifications for Project 7907, District 723, paving street lighting for Opportunity Park First 3 subdivision.
Mr. Grasser.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, member of City Council. Opportunity Park, if you remember, is located on the west side of the interstate, just south 32nd Avenue South. It's an area where we have built a lift station a couple of years ago, and we have bid and awarded the underground contract work out there, and this was going to be the next phase, which was going to be the paving. Good news is that we have a developer that would that's interested in a fairly large area out there, but might require part of that street to be moved or relocated or somehow adjusted. So to give them time to figure out how that might fit within their development plan, we're asking that this item be tabled here for 2 weeks.
Mr. Sandy motions to table. Mr. Vian seconds for 2 weeks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Grasser. Need introduction ordinance on 416. Mr. Sandy, thank you. Item 5, informational items. None. Item 6, citizen requests. I have none. Item 7, approval of minutes and bills. 7.1.
The vendor list and engineer's estimate as presented.
Need a motion, a second to pay the bills. Mr. Weigel motions, Ms. Mock seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Thank you. The bills are paid. Item 8, city administrator comments. Mr. Phelan.
Mayor Brown, members of City Council, I'm planning to develop a few meetings upcoming, so I'll have to let you know. One is a joint city library meeting, and I know council members Marshall, Sandy, and Vian are on that, so I'll work to get that accomplished. I'd like to have a meeting on their side to let you know what they're working on, whether it's with the Herald building or what they're doing with the existing. So I'll create a joint meeting on that. The other thing that came out of the, one of the meetings that came out of the strategic priority session is to have a joint meeting with the school district. So I will work on creating that in an agenda. We're working on many things together, and I think we were more focused on growth development on that. But there's other things that we're working on. So I'll work to put a joint meeting together with the school district on that. Also wanted to let you know that we are working with UND on public transportation. Just had a meeting with Mr. Bergman and our counterparts at UND. So we're working on an MPO study. We're planning to bring that back. I'm not sure what the outcome is going to be, but there is a move to see if these two systems can become one. And so that will be coming forward to in June, probably in the June timeframe for your consideration. So we're working to finalize that, so you should know that. And also, we are following up with our Grand Forks Herald partners to include UND and the library, school district. There's one more out there, I can't think of them. EDC, sorry. And we're having some follow-up meetings about doing some master planning on that. So all of them have accepted and are excited to work with you. So thanks for your work on the Grand Forks Herald billing, and we have followed up and worked on that. So that's all that I have here.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Now we go to item 9, Mayor and Council member comments. Councilman Weigel.
Nothing, Mayor.
Councilwoman Dockler.
Nothing.
Thank you. Councilman Weber.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Mock. Councilwoman Marshall. Vice President Councilman Vian. Council President Sandy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to say congratulations to President Kennedy on his new adventure. I wish him all the best. And also, Mr. Mayor, with the discussions that we've been having related to housing, special assessment deferrals coming off other items, I think it was 4 years after the Blue Ribbon Commission on Housing in 2014 where we got the group back together and did a review. I think we should do that again, sir, so that we can take a look at some of the policies that we implemented, see how they're affecting the housing market, get an update on where we are on with the overall market, and then try to determine if we need to make any changes or tweaks or extend the special assessment deferrals or whatever. And that way that group can make recommendations to the city council. So with your permission, I work with Todd to
Please.
work on that. Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Phelan. And again, Grand Forks is the proud home of the University of North Dakota, and we wish President Kennedy well. Congratulations to our library, 119 years old. And it's National Music Week. Everyone's celebrating Oncology Nursing Week. Please say thank you. Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. And thank you, Robin David, for the Welcoming Community Roadmap for Grand Forks. And thank you, Barry Wilford, for the Teen Grand Forks Legislative Update. Congratulations to everyone who participated in that. With that, we take a motion to adjourn. Ms. Marshall motions. Mr. White, quickly seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us tonight. This meeting has been brought to you in part by
Let Grand Forks International Airport help you start your next vacation off on the right foot. Grand Forks International Airport offers flights to the sunny destinations of Orlando, Las Vegas, and Phoenix on Allegiant, and connections anywhere in the world through Minneapolis-St. Paul on Delta. Forget the hassle of long drives, parking nightmares, and stressful check-ins. The convenience of flying locally means less headaches and more time for you. Grand Forks International Airport, your airport, simply grand.
How many things in your house connect to the internet? Let's see. Computers, smartphones, gaming console, maybe your appliances and lights. They say that by the year 2020, the average home will have 5 devices for every one person. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be average. We're going to need much better internet.
Midco Extreme Gig is here. Life changing.
Know what's in this box? Well, in case your crystal ball is broken, here's a hint. Safe, reliable energy, for starters, but there's also a commitment to this community. See, at Excel Energy, this is our hometown. So we're not just about making a living here, we're about living here. Oh, I wish I had wings.
In our community, we're always delivering. Excel Energy, responsible by nature.
As a farm kid from North Dakota, I was raised to face challenges head-on. But that was put to the test when I was diagnosed with cancer as a teenager. Now, I'm determined to help kids overcome illnesses like I did. So I started my journey at the University of North Dakota. With hard work and determination, I'll help others like my doctors helped me. I'm making my impact. How will you make yours?